Texas mourners endure grief that none of us can comprehend. Okay, I know that's just the title of this right here, this article, which is under Yahoo Associated Press by Juan Lozano and Claire Galfaro. And so I heard about what had happened in Texas at this high school, and I sort of foretold that I felt like because of the sensationalism of, some of the people parading around stating that they no longer wanted, the guns to get in the wrong hands of people, which is true. I agree with that. You don't want guns to get in the wrong hands of individuals. But I feel like by them having a big, that people who are not really emotionally stable look at that and they say, wow, they're getting a lot of press, they're getting a lot of media attention, they're getting a lot of recognition. And those who don't get any media attention or recognition, they don't get any attention even in their small communities. They're viewed as nobodies, want to be somebody, they want to be recognized. And teenagers are going through that stage in their life where they want to be noticed. They're all about identity, cell phones, going out with friends, being popular or trendy. And even if it's something bad, what others might look at as something bad, maybe in minds of teenagers that are really impressionable and they are really desiring lots of a focus and attention, even if it's something bad, they'll get it if they participate in this type of activity. So it's here, this article is stating that people are trying to recuperate from the trauma that has happened. Santa Fe, Texas AP congregations in this deeply religious community near Houston gathered Sunday for their first service, with one pastor lamenting the grief that none of us can comprehend. Just 2 days after the deaths of 8 students and 2 substitute teachers, the pastor of Day Spring Church acknowledged the pain racking Santa Fe, a town of 13,000. They will never be forgotten in this community. These young people, children just going to school, said Brad Drake, who then read the names of the dead, including a slain student who attended services at Day Spring. We have families today that are grieving a grief that none of us can comprehend. The family of the slain student, Angelique Ramirez, did not attend the service. She was a member of the church's youth ministry, Drake said. She was a sweet young lady. And so there's more into this, of course. She had a style of her own, he recalled, and she almost always had a new hairstyle. Kelly Ward, who runs a ministry in Springfield, Missouri, and is a licensed counselor, took the stage to urge congregants not to hold in their emotions, to begin to heal if they have to cry or call out or pray or whatever it is that they do to make them feel comforted. So how do we get through this? And what do we do? Ward asked. The answer is to let everyone grieve, including yourselves. And that's all you can do, really. And I'm adding that in there. He said people can help grieving families or friends simply by listening to them and listening to their stories and their feelings. No words are going to fix this, but your presence being there is what the families do need, Ward said. So why is our presence so important? Because dwelling in us is the spirit, okay? And so here it says, dwelling in us is the Spirit of God. Well, everybody does not have the same beliefs, and everybody is not, living by those beliefs. Apparently so, because if they were, then a lot of these incidences wouldn't happen. So there's a lot of people who are hurting, they're in pain, and there's a lot of people with emotional and mental disorders and problems. There are some people who maybe they are just very, narcissist people. They have some issues that need counseling or deep counseling. They may not be wrapped too tight. It could be a number of things. Everybody doesn't have the same mindset. Some people are just hateful and they look for trouble. And so everybody is not, having the same types of experiences that some do. Some are looking for the good in others, and then there's others who are looking to do harm to others. So that's my personal adding in there. Church leaders wore green T-shirts with gold lettering and the colors of the Santa Fe High School. Inside an outline of the state of Texas, the letters spelled out a verse from 2 Corinthians 4 and 8-9. Okay, so it goes on to say that we're hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. In a nearby church kitchen, parishioners prepared plates of barbecue to be sold after the service, with all the proceeds going to victims' families. At Arcadia First Baptist Church in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott hugged parishioners as they arrived. Among them was Monica Bracknell, an 18-year-old senior who survived the shooting. She stopped to tell the governor that the attack should not be turned into a political battle over gun control. Exactly. Surrounded by television cameras, photographers, and reporters, she told Abbott guns were not to blame. People are making this into a political issue, she said, and she told him, this is not a political issue. It's not a gun law issue. It is not the first time faith in Santa Fe has been tested, with the whole country watching. In 2000, the city was at the center of a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision that banned students from leading pre-game prayer over loudspeakers. The court ruled 6-3 that the school's district policy of allowing student-led prayers at campus events violated constitutionally required separation of church and state. Justices said giving students a public forum for prayer was effectively sponsoring the message. Also Sunday, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick called for a hardening of the nation's school buildings in the wake of the attack. Patrick, a Republican, blamed a culture of violence and said more needs to be done to keep shooters away from the students, such as restricting school entrances and arming teachers with weapons. When you're facing someone who is an active shooter, the best way to take that shooter down is with a gun. But even better than that is 4 to 5 guns to 1, he told CNN's State of the Union. On ABC's The Week, Patrick said he supports background checks for gun purchases, but stressed that gun regulation starts at the home. Meanwhile, families plan funerals. Services for 17-year-old Pakistani exchange student Sabika Shika took place Sunday at a mosque in the suburban Houston. So excuse me if I pronounced the name incorrectly. Her father, Abdul Aziz Sheikh, described his daughter as an accomplished student who aspired to work in civil service and hoped one day to join Pakistani's foreign office. Her body is in to be returned to Karachi So the 17-year-old suspect, Demetrios Pagortis, has been jailed on capital murder charges. In the first statement since the massacre, Pagortis' family said Saturday that the bloodshed seemed incompatible with the boy we love. We are shocked and confused, as everyone is, or as anyone else, by these events, said the statement that they made, which offered prayers and condolences to their victims. Relatives said that they remain mostly in the dark about the specifics of the attack and shared the public hunger for answers. The suspect's attorney, Nicholas Poel, said that he was investigating whether his client endured any teacher-on-student bullying after reading reports of Pagortis being mistreated by football coaches. In an online statement, the school district said it investigated the accusations and confirmed that these reports were untrue. And so I'm going to stop for a minute. This is the same scenario that happened with Nicholas Cruz in the Florida shooting at the school out in Florida, where they wanted to find a motive as to why the teenager even contemplated doing this terrible act. And so anybody that is attached to that shooter, any family members, any friends, anybody, they question them, and nobody wants to really attach themselves. They don't want to be named as a possible reason that triggered that person to react in that fashion, because that the guilt of feeling that you could possibly be a part of why this person, maybe they already had some emotional or mental issues or some things going on in their head. And for someone to be insensitive and unempathetic to these individuals that have clearly, as you see, some emotional problems, they add to the problem by ignoring them or heckling them or belittling them or teasing them because they have these emotional issues or these problems, or they seem like the odd one out in the group. And so a lot of people will throw their hands up, and this is when people start to point fingers at one another, like what could have, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and people start to point fingers at what could have been the cause or who could have triggered that individual if they have emotional disorders. Well, was he close to anybody? Did he talk to someone and forewarn them? Who's at fault? Who could have warned us about this coming? What are all of the, puzzle pieces that fit in this picture here? And so this is where they're at right now, and they're trying to find out more information about what could have caused this person to be set off to do this. It said it investigated the accusations were not true. So Poel said that there was no history of mental health issues. This is a first with his client, though there may be some indications of family history. So they're still searching. He said it was too early to elaborate on those. So this is under the Associated Press. Writer Paul J. Weber contributed to this report as well. And so following the AP's coverage on the Santa Fe High School shooting, and it's underneath there. And so it's another unfortunate, which I don't think it will be the last unfortunate and sad reality, that we live in this society where we never know when these incidences are going to occur. And even with the best gun control and with the best, protection, you never know what triggers individuals and what will set them off for them to create this type of scenario to happen, and people's lives to be taken, unfortunately. And, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of anger, unanswered questions, and people are trying to heal from a lot of this. We know this is a possibility, a reality that this could happen again, but we're trying to grapple at answers. People are trying to find ways of trying to lessen these situations. But I have said, as I said in previous videos, I felt as though by them having the big rally and sensationalizing on the whole thing and debating back and forth in politics over a gun debate and bringing NRA and pointing fingers at each other, that all it does is create a media circus and a frenzy that cause people to think, wow, I can cause that much disturbance and that much recognition and notoriety just by one incident, because that if that person is not mentally or emotionally stable and they see all of this press coverage, and they may translate it as, I can be famous, whether it's something positive or negative. And so that's what I've said, when you're dealing with people who are young and they're impressionable, it's about trends, it's about fads, it's about fashion, it's about being in the media's eye and being looked upon and viewed as, look at the focus is on you. Let's not look at the royal wedding anymore. Let's not look at the issues that are happening outside of America. Let's focus on this one teenager that decided one day they were having a bad day, or either they were wanting some attention and they got the attention that they wanted. It may not be the right type of attention, but they did get a lot of attention. They got a lot of media coverage, and they wanted, like this boy, from what I heard in some previous articles, that he left some alive and he left others to tell his story. And so there's a bit of wanting to be noticed in this. And this is the pattern that we won't see less of, we'll see more of, because of the way they handle these unfortunate events. And what the fear is now with parents all over that have school children or high school children is that this could happen anywhere. And this is a really bad thing that happens, where something horrible will happen and then it sparks debate, and then it raises eyebrows, and then it brings politics in it. And then the next thing you know, you've got this media circus and this frenzy, and then panic and fear, which some people thrive on. They like the fact that they can scare a lot of people and make people worried and afraid that they can have that much power. If they didn't have power before, they do now. And so that's the unfortunate thing. I believe that's where a lot of this is coming from. And, even you can point fingers at the NRA, but, they're a big entity and they're not going away. I'm afraid to say so, that to truth be told, they're not going away. Even if they try to say that they're not going to receive funding from the NRA, I don't believe that to be so. I believe they have a lot of pull in the government, and there's still connections, even though people claim they're going to sever their ties. There's other organizations who are still tied to the NRA, and so it is true. People are the ones that pick up the guns and use the guns. It's not guns that are killing people. It's people that are killing people. And it's sad, but it's the reality. It's realism in this day and age. And this is not something that's uncommon. Things like this have happened before. It's just now these things are happening a lot closer together. And I believe what has brought on this trend, this horrible trend, is the fact that they sensationalized it by putting it in the Time magazine and having people rooting for them on who's on what side, and all of this debate and the bickering. And I think that's what's caused this horrible domino effect to occur. And I really feel sad about this whole thing for everybody, because everybody is a little bit really on edge, because you never know when it's going to happen in your school and in your neighborhood and in your city or your town. And so I think that's the big concern. And how are you going to, be prepared, is what you would be asking the question, because you don't know who's feeling bad that day. You don't know who's wanting attention. I have said, and, you know, having familiarity with school districts, that there are children that have lots of needs, that have lots of, issues. There's some children that are thrill seekers, and these are perfect environments that breed that kind of thinking for kids who, want to be noticed. If they're not getting noticed for any other talent, then unfortunately, some kids think that being labeled something, as to be afraid of them, or to take notice that this person was wielding a gun and took out several innocent people. These are the realities that we're now facing. So I would think that people would have to work at trying to prepare themselves for, the inevitable at this point, because you can have as many as laws and control on this, control on that. There's always ways that people find a way around those laws and those rules. And there's always ways that people find some way to get their hand on a gun. And if they're not wrapped too tight, or if they have some issues, if they have like mental issues, or if they have not taken medication, or they have problems, they could very well be the next person we see in the news. They're talking about has, eventually harmed a classroom full of kids and innocent staff, and children are now victims of someone. A lot of times there are signs and someone knows. And so this is where they're at. They're trying to figure out who knew something about this kid. Because, there's always someone they talk to, or something that they leave as a clue. There's always signs. Even if they write a letter, a manifesto is a lot of times what people will do, write something telling you, outlining what they're planning and plotting to do. So, well, with that being said, I really don't like to see these things continue on, but I see it happening again because of the fact that it is now, been so sensationalized. And the girl in the article who mentioned that it shouldn't be a political thing, that I believe is what caused all of the frenzy, because people are really, really hardcore into politics, and it's all over the media. And what better way to get yourself noticed? If somebody is not really getting noticed in high school, and they're not famous, is to do stuff like this. You definitely will get noticed. You may end up getting, jail time, prison time, or worse, but you definitely will be noticed. You'll be noticed. And that's an unfortunate reality. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening.